something, kind of my first piece of advice is as applicable to small businesses and startups as it is to the larger, even more enterprise clients that we work with, which is like get content on your website. But when we look at the content of the web pages itself, it's just there's hardly anything there describing what they do or the products they sell. And when we're starting from that point, it's just about coaching our clients. Like, hey, we gotta be more descriptive. We expect people to come to the website and learn about these things, but you're offering them next to nothing. So, I think just easy win is, going through your web pages and going, okay, maybe this can be hard for you to do if you're in the business, get somebody else, but go, okay, what do I got here? Do I buy this product? But you don't have to be an SEO expert to just describe what your business does.
We're all part of this whole money game. This whole...
All right, welcome back to another episode of Beers and Business, episode 7. I'm Abe Dearmer, CEO of Appsembler.
And I'm Andrew, CEO of Teamgate CRM. And today we've got another special guest, number 2, the second special guest of this series. And we're joined by Griffin, who is the CEO and founder of Uproer. And we'll probably get to Griffin introducing himself very soon. But how's it going, Griffin? How's it going, Abe?
Yeah, I'm going well. Ready to go for another episode. It's an early morning one because we are talking to Griffin, who's over in the US, and so we thought we'd make it friendly for his hours. So I'm lucky enough to not have done an Instagram poll for today and was able to select my drink, which is a watermelon gose, which is a German beer.
It doesn't sound like
it's
beer.
A perfect beer to have early morning compared to, what have you got, Andrew?
Thanks to our followers who voted on the poll, I have a hazy IPA, which is about 2 standard drinks at 5 in the morning. So I'm sure we'll get into that. But cheers to another episode at 5 a.m. And I'm sure I'll enjoy this one.
Yeah, and cheers to Reckless Brewing for their limited release watermelon gose. What do you got today, Griffin? What are you drinking?
Yeah, well, thank you guys for letting me drink at 2 p.m. my time. So I appreciate the sacrifice. And I'm drinking a Pilsner called the Laser Loon from Inbound, which is I'm based here in Minnesota in the U.S. and it's a local brewery and they do some good work. And I know you guys know this, but for the listeners, the loon is the state bird of Minnesota. So I thought it was kind of fitting to pick this one today. And yeah, it's good.
Nice.
And I just realised after my first sip that I brushed my teeth this morning, which was probably a terrible choice when you're going to have a beer straight away. So, yeah, cheers to that.
Yeah.
But cheers for coming on, Griffin.
I'll blame it on that.
Do you want to maybe let's kick it off? I know we usually do, how's the week and talk about a few different things, but maybe let's kick it off. Griffin, do you just want to tell us about Uproer?
Yeah, happy to do it. So Uproer, we're a marketing agency, as I mentioned, based in Minnesota, and we specialize in SEO and paid search. So, we're everything search. So we partner with a lot of clients who need, really deep expertise in those areas. A lot of them ended up being in the SaaS space, so intersecting with these guys here, a lot of e-commerce companies. But yeah, we've been in business for 7 years now. I've been in the search marketing space for 12. I spent my entire career agency side, so I've enjoyed just working with a lot of different businesses, facing down a lot of different challenges in the search marketing space, and excited to hopefully share some wisdom from that experience today, and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, and look, everyone's in for a treat because everything I've learnt about SEO has come from Griffin at some stage. And when I first started at explaining our Integrate.io, Griffin was there teaching us the ways of organic search. And the one thing that why we wanted Griffin to come on to the podcast is I really respect his no bullshit approach to things and doesn't try to fluff things up, just wants to deliver the best experience. And I think you had some learnings in your agency time and probably what wanted you to start Uproar, where you said, I'm sick of all these people trying to bullshit and blunder their way through the SEO space, and let's try and provide some actual quality to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Snake oil.
I think we'll get into this today, but there's a lot of snake oil in this space, and it's frustrating to see people invest in it and get really poor service, and think at the end of the day, this doesn't work, for my business. So, yeah, I'd like to be on the opposite side of the spectrum. Just hopefully, with just kind of that no BS candor. Just tell people really, what is the opportunity and what do they need to be doing to realize it. Which can be tough if they're coming from an experience where they weren't getting that, it wasn't going well, and they feel like they flushed a lot of money away. So that was part of it, and I'm glad that came through. So I appreciate that, Abe.
No worries at all, Griffin. But let's do a beer review. So we talked about what beers we've got. So this watermelon gose, I must say, was an excellent choice for a 5 a.m. beer. So if you ever want something that is like, look, it is. It's 1.3 standard drinks. It's not like it's a mid strength or anything like that. But it's what I would say, I guess, 1.3 standard drinks, 4.4% alcohol, right? But because I know what the US doesn't really do standard drinks that much, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but yeah.
Yeah, so 4.4% alcohol is the
standard.
The alcohol level. So it is super smooth. It's almost like a nice fruity water, I guess you could say. And technically in
Seltzer?
Germany, no, it's not. It's completely different, right? It's its own league. So I did a bit of research, not to come on the podcast. Probably did more research about this than I've ever done about SEO. But quick Wikipedia search, because that ranks first for SEO when you search about Gose beer. And technically, according to German standards, it's not a beer, but because it gets an exemption because of its I guess its specialty in the area. So because it was created in Germany by these people, technically when you look at the classifications of what is a beer, it's not, but they give it an exemption and allow it to be sold as a beer. So there you go, bit of history on Gose.
Gigo. Look at Gigo trying to be a beer connoisseur. And Griffin, I would say that's the most in-depth review anyone's given about a beer on this podcast. I think Abe's just trying to...
I learned something. That was nice.
I'll give it a 4.9 out of 5 for 5 a.m. beers.
Look, it sounds good. It's making me a little bit jealous over here because I have the hazy IPA, so hazy tropical IPA from Your Mates. I went to Your Mates yesterday, which is a local brewery near my house, and stocked up on a few different beers for the next couple of weeks, next couple of episodes. But of course, our followers picked the highest concentration of alcohol for my 5 a.m. beer. So thanks, guys. It's 1.9 standard drinks. So essentially the equivalent of 2 shots of Jack Daniels, Griffin, just so you're aware. And it tastes like it. It definitely tastes like it's 2 standard drinks. It is a bit fruity, a bit tropical. But yeah, you can definitely taste the alcohol.
Looks like a glass of orange juice, mate. No one will know any difference, right?
It's pretty. It looks pretty thick, doesn't it? Like it's not very opaque or transparent.
Well, that'll be good. Hopefully, I'll have a productive morning. Yeah. Until
I'm gonna go back to bed.
Until maybe that wears off. Yeah, I'm surprised you guys didn't go with something like coffee infused or something, But I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm with this Pilsner. I'm usually. I guess I've always been like an IPA guy when I usually go for a craft beer, but I don't know if I burnt myself out on them or what. And it's not.
It can happen.
It's now been all Pilsners, and they're a little bit lighter alcohol content. This is 4.3, and just crisp and refreshing. Where sometimes I don't know. I feel like probably Andrew, you might feel a little weighed down by a heavy IPA. So yeah, I've been on the Pilsner train for a while, and this is a good one. I like it. It's just it's easy to drink. You can tell it's light. It's nice.
Yeah,
Oh
that's a
yeah,
cool cup
it's good for
too.
two. Yeah, good. Well, and it's funny. So yeah, I said that was called the Laser Loon, and then this cup has a loon on it too. So I'm really just committing to that theme right
Full
now. So
Patreon.
Yeah, going full in on it. Nice, that's awesome. I think, yeah, the choice of a coffee infused beer. I had a stout last call, so I couldn't do another stout. And I voted for Andrew to have the stout. I think 3 times from 3 different accounts, but
Thanks,
yeah,
Abe. Thanks, Abe. I
it didn't
appreciate
come
it.
across. I'm just looking out for you, mate. Trying to get you that stout.
I voted for whatever the lowest concentration was. So we voted for 2 different things. So I think if we're on the same page, I might have got the stout. Right.
All right, let's jump into the weekly wrap up. And Andrew, your learning for the week.
Yeah. Be different. And this is a lesson for Abe as well, because I know he likes to steal my quotes and my learnings for these podcasts week over week.
Piece of crap.
But be different. This one's related to outreach, in particular LinkedIn. So Abe and I are both testing out some new outreach strategies within our own ICPs for our own companies. But one of the techniques we've started to trial and test is, instead of sending this long message of text on LinkedIn, which at the moment is just getting lost in AI and automated outbound, is sending a personalized video. So if I was outreaching or reaching out to Griffin, just sending a quick video. Hey Griffin, love your content. Look, this is why I'm reaching out. They have to press play to read the content or to listen to the content, right? So they don't know what to expect. And if you're genuine in your offering, they're usually going to listen to it. So then they can actually make a decision. For most people, if you're anything like me, if I receive an inbox or a connection request and it comes with this long amount of text, I'm not reading it. I'm just moving on.
Move to other.
Move to other. Yeah. So especially with AI at the moment, a lot of people are, their big solution is use AI for your outreach because it can be automated and quick. But I think you're just being lost in the sea of traffic. If any other CEOs out there are like me, you wake up each morning, you've got about 100 emails in your inbox, and 90% of them is someone trying to sell you something. So unless it stands out, I'm not even reading it. I'm reading the subject and deleting it. So that's my learning for the week. We've seen some really good responses to the videos and some good connection requests and bookings from that approach. So yeah, that's mine. What do you got?
Yeah, my one is talking not only to your customers, but also potential prospects within the ICP space. It gives you this insane understanding of what your ICP wants and how you should be shaping your marketing and sales towards that. And so the reason I say we have this big focus on, talk to your customers, understand what they want, get an understanding of what they use you for and things like that. But then talking to people who fit that profile of your customers and seeing what they currently do that's different to your current customers will give you this really great understanding of how you could be doing things different, where you need to take your product. So it's sort of this almost like this Stockholm syndrome that occurs when your own customers use you. They know what features they want from you, but they may not see what features that competitors or have built in-house really fit their needs. So being able to go forward and then talk to people who are using other products about what they're looking for a product like yours will just give you this insane understanding into what you're missing, how you could be positioning yourself a little bit different to get some of those people that chose someone else that may have been looking at you as well.
Very nice.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was talking to my team this week about providing options when we're working with people, be that clients or internally. We're all busy. We got a lot of decisions we make, day in, day out. We got a lot of things we're juggling, and we're working with a lot of people that are, dealing with the same thing, right? And so we sort of unknowingly contribute to inaction and decision fatigue when we're putting the burden of coming up with those options or developing a solution on other people. So the analogy I kind of used to simplify the whole thing was like, at the end of a long day, which question is easier to ask? Or easier to answer? What do you want for dinner? Or do you want pizza or pasta for dinner? The second one's easier to answer because you can just go, pizza. That sounds good.
Unless you're my
provided
wife.
the option.
And then she says
What's
neither.
that?
Unless you're my wife,
Yeah.
and then she says neither.
Yeah, exactly. But, I was, that can happen, us being a service-based business, we work with clients a lot of time and we encounter challenges and issues. And, if we're coming to the table going, hey, we've identified this thing. What do you guys think? And we're putting it on them to sort of, tell us what we should do about it. What we often find is that just like nothing gets done, right? Like, all right, I'll think about it. I'll get to it later. But if we're coming to the table saying, hey, we've identified this issue, this challenge, this opportunity, whatever it is, and we think we can go route A or route B, even if those don't end up being like the final solutions, you've given them something to react to and say, we can't do route A because of reasons X, Y, and Z, but route B sounds feasible. So why don't we look into that? Now you got like momentum. You got stuff happening, and you've also eliminated any decision fatigue that might happen when you're kind of putting it on them. So providing options, that's sort of thing I've been preaching this week and trying to do a bit of a better job myself at.
Yeah, I love that actually. That's really good. And the other part as well that you get from that is it's almost like they enter into a contractual obligation at that stage by them selecting an option and agreeing to move forward with that. And so the next week when they're like, oh, hey, can we do this? It's like, oh, but we agreed that we we're going to do, this, and we've been doing work on that. And then they go, oh, yeah, you're right. Then they'll either say, great, let's keep moving on that, which is probably going to happen 90% of the time. Or they'll say, oh, actually, we've had a massive redirection over the last week. That no longer is relevant for us. So I think it's sort of unknowingly they enter into this agreement with the team and say, okay, cool, let's move forward with that. And then that can become the focus.
Yeah. And I'm sure even though the natures of our businesses are a little bit different, like inaction is a risk all around, because if our clients are like, oh, we got to think about it or whatever, well, that's going to delay results. And ultimately that, is going to come back to reflect on us and the value that we're providing. And I'm sure in your world, if you're trying to get people to, get that subscription going, or just, get people, activated, onboarded and everything into your platforms, and they're not doing it, like you said, you give them those options, like, oh yeah, we're going to do that. All right, cool. And okay, we got momentum, we got action happening, and that's going to,
and that's
we actually back on us.
We talked about it, and this is, the psychology of, on the last episode, we talked about, some best practices around CTAs and things like that. And this, sort of links into that a little bit, where if you have two options where it's book a demo or start a free trial, people get into this, oh, I don't know, do I want a demo or do I want a free trial? Oh, I've lost interest now. I'm going to go and look at something else. And then you've lost them. Whereas if you just have like hey, you want to start a free trial, click here to start a free trial. And then they click through, they start a free trial, and they're in. Whereas you don't want to get people in that decision fatigue space where there's multiple different call to actions with different meanings, and people get confused about what they should be doing and things like that as well.
I like that. So even limiting the options in some cases, just here's the thing to do. Don't think too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Griffin, I actually love your quote that you selected for this week. So do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah. So the quote I chose was from the playwright George Bernard Shaw, and it goes, the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And this resonates with me because, I don't know, and maybe you guys too, just because, as a business leader, and just with maybe the way my brain works is, I communicate a lot to myself in my own head, as I'm making decisions and coming up with, okay, here's what we're going to do next. And then I tell my team, hey, here's what we're going to do. But they haven't been part of all the communications that I've just been having with myself in the lead up to that decision or the lead up to that change or what have you. So I feel like clarity has been the word for me for like the last year that I've been focused on. And this quote kind of hits the nail on the head in that regard, that like, there's so often you're like, why isn't everybody with me? And it's like, well, you skip past the whole part where you needed to communicate and let them know and get them on board, get them bought in with whatever you're trying to get people to do. So yeah, I love this. The illusion that it's taking place is taking place in my own head most of the time. And therefore sort of assume that everybody else is going to get it and be on board with whatever I'm trying to do. But you got to slow down and make sure, if anything, over communicate, make sure that like, you're hammering at home, whatever the message is that you're trying to get across. So yeah, I like that one.
Probably relates to the podcast a fair bit as well, Abe, right? We get a lot of feedback of jumping. So we put up a poll the other day, Griffin, about the next episode being about SEO and, ask you questions. And the first, I think 10 questions we had was, what is SEO? With just the assumption of knowledge and not having communicated that. So, and it's massive in sales as well, right? Especially on discovery calls and demos. People just have that assumption of knowledge or assumption that they've, the sales rep's probably thinking through things in their head and they just come up with this solution without actually going through the discovery and actually getting the information out from the prospect and talking through their thinking process and that. So yeah, you already know who my quote's going to be from, Abe. We're on week 3. We're back again with another Jimmy Carr quote. And Griffin, I've gone 2 weeks in a row with Jimmy Carr, so I'm trying to go as long as I can just by using Jimmy Carr quotes. So the quote this week is, "Fear is nothing to be afraid of. Fear is a performance enhancing drug." Now, this fits into last week when we spoke about, or last episode when we spoke about imposter syndrome. Embracing that fear, leaning into it, and pushing yourself to overcome it. And it's not so much the fear, but pushing yourself to perform to overcome it. If you're scared that you're not performing in a new role, if you're moving into a new role or promoting, that imposter syndrome is going to start to take over a little bit. But just pushing yourself to be better, to overcome that stuff. And for me, there's always going to be a fight or flight, right? If it's spiders, I'm out. See you later. There's no performance enhancing drug that. There. But no, I guess the performance enhancing is my speed. I'm gone. And it's you'll see how fast I can run to my wife to get rid of it. But for anything outside of spiders, it's coming up with a plan to overcome it. So yeah, that's
anything except spiders.
Yeah, spiders is no go. So I live in a great country.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think, and that's it really speaks there when you think about the imposter syndrome case that we talked about last week, is that sometimes you can let that paralyze you, and you've really got to push past it and put your foot forward. And I'm sure, Griffin, when you first stepped out and started Uproar, you had like this fear of is it going to work, like most people have, and then it's just about how you use that to be your energy to bring it forward. And it almost forces you to put everything into it, because then this lingering fear and imposter syndrome that sits over the top.
Oh, and I love when you push through those experiences. It like creates calluses where, the next time that happens, you're like, oh, I've done this, no problem. So there's always that fear, especially like the first time you're encountering something. And once you have that like proof or validation, like, I can overcome this. And the only way you do that is by pushing through. But once you do that, now you've got that experience banked, and next time something similar happens, it just gives you better confidence that I'm going to use it rather than sort of run from it.
Yeah. And then my one is either you run the day or the day runs you. And that's by Jim Rohn. So that's Jim Rohn's a bit of an old school guy, but a lot of his lessons really run through. If you listen to his stuff, he definitely was a devout Christian. He brings a lot of like the biblical stuff into it, the stuff he says, but you can take away a lot of really good information from him about, daily habits and how you can, increase your performance. And essentially this is just about, you've got to plan out your day. We've all probably been there where we haven't gone into the day with a plan. And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh man, I just got distracted by everything and I got nothing done. Whereas if you time block, you work effectively, you have goals that you want to achieve during that day, you're just going to go out and crush it. But if you go in there with no plan, you're just going to end up spinning around in your chair for, 8 hours of the day wondering what happened.
Yeah.
This was
knowing when
massive,
to say
right?
no too. I mean, that helps because
Yeah.
your day can get thrown off if you're just jumping into every meeting or, saying sure, I'll handle that problem or whatever. It's everything that's coming.
Yeah, for sure. That was the biggest thing. I think the biggest issue I had to overcome when I jumped into the business world, right, when I was working for you, Abe, initially was if you don't have a daily focus and you just are reactive, you're just going to be changing tasks every 2 minutes because a new email is going to come in and then a new task and a new task. So you need to set those blocks or priorities or daily priorities, whether it's marketing, if you're in the business world, marketing, sales, whatever it is, having that overarching guidance. And of course, if something pops up that's high priority, you tackle it straight away. But having having daily focus was a massive thing to help me, especially working from home because it's a completely different environment.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's jump into it then. So this is going to be majority Griffin talking because he knows all about this stuff, and Andrew and I are probably going to learn a whole heap out of this as well, and hopefully everyone that's listening is going to learn a whole heap. And we got in trouble for, it was OKRs and SMART goals, and we did that. It was actually from my wife, but also a few other people, where we didn't define it straight away, and it sort of left this hole. And before we kick off and get you to tell us, what is SEO, one thing I'll point out is I did a quick video on Instagram yesterday to explain to people what is SEO after they asked that question a million times on that Instagram post. And my sister-in-law immediately started referencing Ask Jeeves and saying, why did you say Google and Bing? Where's Ask Jeeves gone? And I thought that was quite funny because if I remember correctly, I think like Google either brought Ask Jeeves or potentially there was some questions around their actions with Ask Jeeves and whether they copied it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't remember if they ended up buying. I'm sure they did, but I definitely remember Ask Jeeves. That's a big throwback. But yeah, I'd love to see that Instagram post, Abe. So help me out here. But starting with let's extrapolate the acronym because there's a lot of acronyms in the SEO space. Search engine optimization. So what SEO is, it's really about earning visibility in search engine results. I think everybody, I know in our positions we're using Google every day, and I think most people are, using it for something, right? To look up a restaurant, to look up, find services, find products, what have you. And most people maybe don't think about, the fact that, these results they're seeing, these companies that are coming up, like they're competing for those placements. They're competing for your clicks. So, basically the discipline of SEO is all about, well, how can we earn those top placements and capture the greatest share of all this search volume that's happening directed to our website versus letting our competitors, enjoy all the benefits of winning, in that space. So, I make the point, as I was kind of thinking about, okay, back to basics, how do I define this? Google, I think, comes to mind for everybody, and it still should because, they get 90 to 92% of the market, just depending on the stats you're referencing. And so, Google is still the dominant, they have been for, decades now, the most dominant search engine in the space. And they sort of lead the way in defining, well, what is optimized? What does that mean? I wish they would come out and tell you exactly what it was. Actually, maybe not, because then our business probably wouldn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's all about, it's the art and science of deciphering. Okay, if you make this tweak, to the code or to the content or what have you, it looks like that correlates with increased visibility, and we sort of accrue those learnings over time, and form in our mind, strategies and tactics, things that we do in order to take a website and improve its visibility in search engine results. So
And I
it
don't
is
even
a
think
bit of
Google
like,
knows anymore what is good content, right? Because the algorithm would be so huge now, with so many different variables that you couldn't really
yeah,
point to. It's sort of like, it's almost this beast that's got out of control, and all anyone's trying to do is
totally.
just stay one step ahead.
Absolutely. I think we're definitely in interesting times, because they're sort of feeling the heat of competition from, the AI chatbots, which are, not threatening the market share or anything like that at this point. But I think they're bringing innovation into the space where typically Google's the one leading that innovation, and others are, maybe threatening that a little bit. And, I think Google is trying to rapidly improve its product, so to in order to keep their dominance intact. And that's just sort of muddying the waters even further about, like, well, what is a good result, and what do you have to do to demonstrate to Google, like, hey, we're a good result, like, legitimately for this search. We're the right business, we're the right web page, we have the right information. And yeah, it's getting more and more confusing over time, but that's also maybe a little bit of helps me sleep at night, because the more confusing it gets, the more people need companies like us to help figure this out. So yeah, it's certainly interesting times in the SEO space.
Yeah, and I think the way that I described it in the Instagram video is, I probably used more layman's terms, where I simply said, when you open up Google or Microsoft Bing and search something, whatever's at the top has really good SEO. Whatever's not at the top doesn't have good SEO. And so SEO essentially means how to get you at the top of Google and Microsoft Bing.
Yeah, and I think a good thing to think about as well is a general layout of a search engine. So a Google or a Bing, what you're generally going to see is the first 3 or 4 posts are going to be sponsored. So that's where paid ads and things like that come into it. So a lot of people think of paid ads as like skipping SEO, I guess, to jump your way to the top, and then all the organic posts are underneath that. But I don't want to talk too much about ads, Griffin. But does SEO still play a role even in paid ads? So I assume you would still need to have a good level of SEO for your website, or at least the ad in regards to keywords and quality of ad to rank highest. Obviously, if you outbid everyone, you got to be first. But I don't know if you wanted to touch on that as well.
Yeah. They definitely overlap. Those sponsored listings, those paid ads, they run off an auction market, so it's largely driven by how much you're willing to pay, right? But there are other factors in play too, because Google at the same time, while they want to collect the most money, they also can't be sending people to crap results, be it an ad or organic listing, or else people will start to distrust the product and they'll leave. They'll go to Bing, they'll go to other options. So they got to maintain some controls around quality. So even if you're advertising and sort of skipping the line, if you will, and just jumping to the top of an organic or of a search engine result, you need to be conscious of the landing page and the content of that page, because Google's evaluating that, going, okay, well, they're bidding on this keyword, they want to show up for this keyword, they're paying to be there. Does this keyword match the content of the page well? And they're sort of comparing you against the other people bidding. And if you're kind of, okay, you're going to just, what's going to happen is you're going to end up paying a little more. The folks that with the best quality content, the best landing page experiences are going to pay a little less, which makes your budget more efficient, which justifies the value of it and the return of it, or at least gives you a better chance for that. So these things intersect, and a lot of the principles of like, okay, how do you get to the top of the organic results can also benefit you when you're, paying, for those sponsored listings as well.
Yeah, and I think they use the quality score. So inside Google Ads, you can access a quality score metric. And if your quality score is low, you pay some ridiculous multiplier on your ad spend. Mm-hmm. So what might cost someone $1 might cost you $5 if your quality score is low. So it's pretty stark, the actual changes that occur with that paid stuff. But I mean, let's I guess skip forward and look at, I mean, what we really want to provide people, what we try to provide people is as much value as possible out of these, some actionable things. I think someone sent me a message the other day and said, I just watched my first episode. I didn't realize I'd need to pull out a notebook and pen and start taking notes during the episode. But that's essentially what we want to try and give people is like, holy crap, this is stuff I should be writing down because this is really important. This could change things for me. And so when we, spoke to Griffin before, we went, okay, well, what are some easy wins SEO wise for small businesses and startups that they can put in place and start to see an effect and build their organic presence, immediately with little to no budget, right? Because whether they're skeptical about it or whether they just don't have the budget is probably the other side. And more important piece is, how do people get those small wins and start to develop that organic traffic?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something, kind of my first piece of advice is as applicable to small businesses and startups as it is to the larger, even more enterprise clients that we work with, which is like, get content on your website. So many people are going, hey, how do we get to the top? Like, what do we got to do? And, they immediately think, oh, it's going to be something advanced or something, we're missing a silver bullet somewhere. And that's what's holding us back. But when we look at the content of the web pages itself, it's just, there's, hardly anything there describing what they do or the products they sell. And when we're starting from that point, it's just about coaching our clients. Like, hey, we gotta be more descriptive. We gotta, we expect people to come to the website and learn about these things, but you're offering them next to nothing. So, I think just easy win is, going through your web pages and going, okay, maybe this can be hard for you to do if you're in the business, get somebody else, but go, okay, what do I got here? And does this actually give you what you need to maybe make a decision about, do I hire this company? Do I buy this product? And I think more often than not, you'll find like, well, I've skipped a lot. I've missed a lot of the things that might be required for somebody to come here and actually find this useful. So my first piece of advice is kind of forget the search engines and just sit in, the shoes of your potential customers and go, well, what do they need to know? If they're coming in cold, am I giving them enough information to equip them to make a decision? More often than not, I think you're going to find that, no, I'm probably not doing that. There was maybe a relevant story there. I'm in Minnesota. It's known for a cold climate. We get warm summers, but it's a cold climate. We get harsh winters. We have a sauna, and found a local sauna builder to make it via search engines. I Googled, and came across this website. Clearly,
did you use was it a website organic, or was it like the Google business profile that got you?
So it would have been, I think, the traditional organic results, because they're actually located about 3 hours north, so they might not have even showed up in my local map pack, right? So that's another helpful tip, though, is getting that Google business profile spun up, especially if you're a local business and you serve a specific region, right? But I think I came across the traditional organic results, and I clicked in, and this guy had written essays on these pages. I think he just got sick of answering the same questions on the phone all the time about what wood do you use? What do I get?
How
yeah,
long does
and
it
all this stuff.
take?
And yeah, exactly. And he just wrote, and and I actually, when I called him, I asked him a couple questions. He goes, "It's on the website. It's on the website." And he just, I was like, "Well, all right, I got to get back to the website."
Not the
So,
best
I mean,
customer
this guy,
service,
Yeah.
but like
yeah, not the best customer service, but he had accidentally, I think, like, I don't think he put that content up there going, "Well, this is to get me to the top of the organic results." He just was like, "I got to stop spending so much time on the damn phone, explaining these things over and over again."
to people who
So
aren't
he
going to
just
buy.
put it up. Yeah, and he just put it up on the website, and I think that probably had the effect of, it got him more phone calls probably at the end of the day, and he just has to tell people all day, go to the website, go to the website. But yeah, I love that because I can tell because I'm in the industry. He didn't have anybody help him do that. It was just, he was just taking what his potential customers were asking, all the information they would need to make a decision, and he goes, "I'm just putting it on the website, so I don't have to answer it when they call me on the phone." And from Google's perspective, they came across this, small business website and go, "Wow, look at the depth of information here. Look at, this company must really know what they're doing in this regard." So when anybody searches for, custom sauna builder, they're showing up right at the top. So um, I say that because that's something everyone can do, and you might go, I don't have the time to be writing all this, and I'm not a writer, what have you. So the first thing I say is like, well, you've written content somewhere. It might not be on the
Mm.
website, but maybe it's in the pamphlet that you hand customers, or maybe it's in the leave behind, or maybe it's in the proposal, or
This comes back to
whatever.
your quote, right? Like you've got it all in your head as
Mm-hmm.
like an owner, founder of a business. It's hard if you're a marketing rep trying to distill that information. But if you're like an owner, a founder in a small business and you're running the website, then like that communication piece, like you've got it all there. It's just a matter
Yeah,
of getting it out onto the website.
yeah, absolutely. And maybe you've already put it somewhere else, and it's just not accessible, via the web. It's in a PDF, it's in, a printed document, or something like that. So start there. Just that's the low hanging fruit. Just make that your newest, web page, and at the very least, I think it's going to give you that opportunity, like that sauna guy. Like, hey, it's on the website. So if it's going to help you provide a sales function or whatever, do it too. And I think you'll get the ancillary benefit of like, oh, and now we're actually ranking for that, you know, service or keyword or what have you. So yeah, I just think getting in the mind of your customer, thinking about what are those FAQs that you hear all the time? Are they represented on your website? Are they thoroughly answered? Um, and that has benefits far outside SEO. It can help make your sales process easier and all that good stuff too. But you don't have to be an SEO expert to just describe what your business does.
And so my follow-up question from that is, hey, I'm a business owner. I've got no idea about website design or SEO or anything like that. You tell me to convert my offline documents into the website and, write an essay on the website. I go and actually write an essay and just put it up on the website. That's not going to work. So when we look at, how you would recommend structuring that, do you have, obviously, it's a lot to go into now. There's a lot of nuances that go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any resources that are out there for people, or any recommendations like, hey, go and look at other websites in your industry? And, if you run like, we had Mitch on from Zeus Electrical, if you run an electrician business, right, go and look at who ranks number one in the space, and then just get inspiration from their website. Are there any recommendations like that you'd have to people?
Yeah, I think that's like probably the easiest starting point is, again, if you can kind of take that empathetic approach and go, okay, I'm gonna pretend that I'm a customer shopping for, what my business provides. I'm gonna poke around. Well, what content am I going? Yeah, that actually does look really helpful, and that's clean how they laid it out. Yeah, so take those keywords or the search queries. What you would hope people would find you for. Plug that into Google. Plug that into Bing. So see who's top 1, 2, or 3, those competitors that you're like, what are they doing, to get there? Look at the pages that, click the results, go to the pages, and just sort of, examine, what they're doing. Okay, wow, this page is easy to read. They've structured it with nice headings, and this information's in just some really clean bullet points, and it makes it easy to kind of peruse and scan. So yeah, you don't want to be that. You don't want to come across as a psycho and just have that, wall of text, and you want to make it a good experience when people land on the page. But sometimes I think I use the analogy of like, hey, remember when you were back in school, back in college, maybe back in high school, where, you had to write a paper, you had to write a term, you had to structure it, right? You couldn't, you had to have sections, you had to have subheadings, you had to, make it coherent so somebody could read it. So, it kind of takes some of those same principles, of structure and readability, and apply it to the web. And, of course, there's plenty of resources too, and maybe I can follow up, here with, just a few things we can like link to, from the podcast description or something like that, like just basic tenets of, structuring a web page so that it's just easy, make it easy on people to get the information they want.
Yeah. And a lot of our listeners, Griffin, that probably aren't even, some of them won't even have a website. And we touched on this last episode of the benefits of a website, and a lot of companies are starting to look, to launching their own website. So let's say they've come up with a plan, they've mapped it out on a piece of paper, they've got all the service pages that they want to design, and the content's ready to go.
Well, these people are really advanced.
Really advanced. They've spoken to Uproer. They've spoken to someone, and they've
watched episode 7 of Busy Business, and they've
listened to this episode, and they've taken notes. But looking at CMS, is there any recommendations around CMS? So I guess for CMS, what actually is CMS? I'm probably skipping ahead again, but content management system. So that's essentially where your website's hosted. So a WordPress, a Wix, something like that. Is there any recommendations, I guess, for small businesses around, where to start their search for CMS, and is there any recommended CMS for SEO?
Yeah. So I think WordPress is probably the most popular CMS or website builder for small businesses. It's what my company's site is built on. It's what it powers a lot of websites out there, even, small businesses up to pretty large ones. So pretty ubiquitous, well-known. It's also just sort of, it's open source and free. So that's an attractive proposition. You do have to probably at some point pay for themes or plugins. So it's not, it doesn't come up with like a $0 price tag in most cases, but so that's a great one. But I would say some of the downsides is that you kind of you need to have a little bit of savviness, because it's open source, it's fully customizable. It's almost like it's too many options. You need plugins, you need themes, you need to, really get into the settings of those things to make sure it's working for, SEO and doing the right things there. So I almost, if you're starting from a place of, well, I'm going to have to be doing this myself, I almost turn people away from WordPress, and I go, it's just going to be too much of a beast for somebody who is coming into it cold. So I'll, more push people towards, hey, check out Squarespace, check out Wix, check out Webflow. These have more like out of the box solutions. They're more of a closed ecosystem, and that has its advantages too. We were talking about the advantage of sometimes limiting the amount of options that you can do. So or if, I would also mention Shopify if you're e-commerce. So it doesn't give you limitless customization, but for most businesses, that's a good thing. Like it simplifies it.
I'd agree with that as well, right? Like, I look at WordPress and I feel like if you don't have a dev part-time / full-time working with you. I feel like
there's a lot of
WordPress is a bit
maintenance, right?
unwieldy.
Yeah, and then you have people like my website's on WordPress, and when Abe and I worked together, he would implement his own plugins, like FAQ plugin, which then resulted in FAQs being added to every
The
single
homepage.
page on the website,
For instance.
in random locations, and we didn't know how to turn it off. So
And
make sure
I feel
you've
like
got
the
tech
more
support.
the longer you have WordPress, the harder it is to maintain, because you do have all these like nuances that come in. It's like, oh, no, you can't do that because
Things
you
are hidden.
need to do X, Y, Z.
Like, it's really hard to find things that you need to change. Yeah, it's a big beast, especially if you've had it.
Out of like Wix and Squarespace and Webflow, is there anyone there that you'd say gives you best bang for buck that you've seen?
It depends. I think if you're maybe if you're a solopreneur and let's say you're a photographer, you're something like that where you're just sort of an independent, and you need just something to get something up quick, and it's got to look good. I think Squarespace is, they got beautiful themes. I think they make it really easy. Um, you know, so I think it's a good one to look at and a good one to start with. I think maybe Wix and Webflow might serve you a little bit better if you're coming into it with some foundational knowledge around here's how websites work, and I do want some of the bells and whistles. I do want to be able to toggle certain things. So, if you look at yourself maybe more as an intermediate, I would check out those. And then if you're e-commerce at all, I just think Shopify's got the best solution.
The thing is, Shopify has so much stuff like automated, the checkout and everything like that. It comes with a price tag, but I mean, you just can't go past what it gives you for e-commerce, specifically. All right, cool. So I think like that, when we look at those key bits, is just start. You've got offline materials, convert them into your website, put them on your website. If you don't have a CMS or you don't have a website, then content management system, then go and find one. Steer away from if you're inexperienced with websites or don't want to hire someone to manage it for you, steer away from using, WordPress or some of those more technical things, although it is great, but move more towards like your Wix, your Squarespace, your e-commerce, go Shopify. I mean, one thing that you didn't really talk about there is and I just want to touch on this because I find a lot of people get captured in Australia. It's this funny thing. I can't remember which bank it was, but there was this bank that when you took out when you open your business account with them, they would set you up with a website and host it themselves and give you like some free website, I guess, development time that comes with it. And like, man, if that is an entrapment, I don't know what is. Like, I want to change bank. Well, your website's hosted with us as well, so you lose that. And it's like, well, that's where I make money. Well, it looks like you got to stay with us, right? But when I find that for your first time setting up a website, often people will go to IT companies or your local, IT company and say, hey, can you create me a website? And then they get it created and it's a real pain. Either once it's done, they stop getting the support and it costs them a lot of money to get the support, or if they want to move it, it comes at a big price. Do you recommend people to use those sort of services when they're first starting out, or I guess at all, or just say, just bite the bullet and spend the time yourself and get onto Squarespace and Wix?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a bit situational, but I think there's definitely great web design development, people and agencies out there that can really help businesses. I think it's just equipping businesses to know kind of what to ask, and thinking ahead and going, hey, I want a website that, first of all, I own. That's a big thing. we see it in, especially too, like on the paid search side of things, where unbeknownst to the business, the agency set up their Google Ads account under the agency's ownership. And when the business goes, all right, I'm ready to switch agencies, they go, well, have fun setting up a new account. You know, all that history,
Yeah.
all that performance, it's gone. So kind of like that bank, yeah. And the same can happen for websites, right? Maybe to a lesser extent, but I think what can happen certainly is websites being built that only a professional can maintain. And with the CMSs we talked about, there's no reason for that. So it's just businesses knowing, you know, making that one of the goals, right? Well, I want to get more business, I want to get more traffic, but I also want to get a website that once you're done building it, I'm equipped to maintain, and maybe I come to you, you know, once a quarter, a couple times a year, what have you. I want enhancements, I want things, I want new things, or, you know, added to the site or whatever. I want to tweak the design. You know, that's what that should that company should be able to continue to provide to you. But yeah, I think in this day and age, there's no reason why a small business can't get a website built that they can then, you know, feel with some degree of confidence, like, okay, I can go in there, I can log in, and I can like change text, and I can add a page, or, you know, basic stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, right? And people have a look at that. If you can't go in and do something simple on your website, then you've been set up to fail pretty much from the get-go.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing there that obviously plays a massive part in websites is your Google Search Console, and, you know, letting Google know that your website's there with your sitemap. Is this something? So essentially, maybe it's a good idea to talk about the sitemap and Google Search Console just quickly to give everyone that definition. And then, is it something that a novice user can do, or is it something that you need some help with?
Yeah, and novice user might find it a little confusing, but just Google Search Console, it's a free like diagnostic tool that can help you understand, you know, where am I showing up for inorganic search results? Like, what keywords are associated with my website? And there's a few, you know, configurations and things within, like you can actually submit what's called your sitemap, which is a file that lists all your URLs in your website. Give that directly to Google effectively through this tool called Google Search Console. So it is one of those foundational things. If somebody's coming at it from, you know, hey, I'm technology is not my strong suit, you know, you might want to hire an SEO person or analytics person to help you just kind of get that established. But the good thing too about some of the CMSs we talked about, they all have good documentation on how to set that up yourself. So if you feel like, you know, I'm not a complete Luddite, I know my way around a website, I know how to, you know, kind of work with this technology a bit, you know, you should be able to, you know, set that stuff up yourself. You know, because a lot of these CMSs will make it easy.
Yeah, and if I am, you know, completely incapable of doing that, is that going to be a big deal, or is it okay? Am I going to survive if I don't have a search console and the sitemap uploaded?
Yeah, you're going to survive, certainly. If you're asking those questions, you know, maybe you're getting to a point of, you know, I want to know, yeah, like, how are people finding me? You're going to be a bit blind to that until you set up a tool like that. There's also paid tools, but if you're not in the industry, that doesn't really, you know, for most businesses, that's not going to make sense to pay for an SEO tool. So I think it's certainly the best free sort of diagnostic and SEO performance tool out there. But you don't need it in order to like be eligible to, you know, rank organically.
Google isn't going to be like, you don't have Search Console. Sorry,
you're not going to show you.
You'll
be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Be good.
All right, cool. And that, I think that the next segment that we that we had planned was about some of the best practices and strategies for SEO. I feel like we've covered off on a lot when just, through that conversation we had previously about some of the best practices. But the first thing there is talk about what you actually have to offer. And I think this is, for me, this is really important, that when I visit somewhere, a web page, and if I can't clearly see what it is, similar to, the sauna guy, right? Then it's either going to result in me having to make a phone call, unnecessary interactions, or I'm just going to go find somewhere that does tell me that they do what I need. That's really like, and I think when you said go through and act like you're a buyer on your website and say, does this make sense to me? Am I going to get people in here? Like, if you constantly get people looking for a different service than what you provide, your website's probably not giving them the right info.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we sort of call that concept search intent. So, I think, when people even have a passing knowledge of SEO, like the first thing they think about is like, oh, keywords. It's like, yep, that involves, keywords, the things that people are typing into Google, and that's what's triggering the results. But what we think about is like, well, what is the intent behind that keyword? What is somebody trying to buy right now today, or is somebody more researching, and they're expecting to get some depth of information there, or is it something maybe that's purely informational? They're not shopping yet. They're just trying to build up their knowledge base so that one day in the future they'll be able to make that purchasing decision. So that's something to consider as well. And I think just some practical advice there on, well, how do I align the content on my website with the search intent that I want to be visible for? Google and all search engines, they really like it when each page of your site serves a specific search intent, right? So you're not taking, for a given topic, every possible thing that you could possibly say about that thing and putting it onto one page. Instead, you're sort of breaking it out. So I think just like a clear example of that is like, we said earlier, hey, get content on your website. Well, there might be somebody out there who goes, well, I've got it on my website. It's there. I've got 10 services, and I've got a service page where it talks about all 10 of my services. It's like, well, that's, a clear miss, right? Like you're taking, what represents maybe 10 different intents, and you're putting it on one page. So trying to serve everybody, you're kind of serving nobody. So like, let's say you're maybe a lawn care company that you do lawn mowing, but you also do snow removal in the winter. Well, if that's both on the same page, like who is shopping for that at the same time?
It's confusing, right? Yeah. And if you got lawn care at the top, they're never going to get to the snow plowing.
Exactly. And Google's going to go, well, I'm not, I'm not quite sure who this page is for, right? So we're not even going to show you anyway. So, in that example, break those services apart. Have the page that talks about lawn mowing, have the page that talks about snow removal, have the page that talks about, landscaping or whatever. And go about it that way so that each individual page is sort of set up for a specific search intent. So I think that's a clear, I think a lot of businesses could maybe identify with that one. But as you carry that forward and maybe think about, well, I want to talk about other things in support of my services. You want to think about, well, if a question's being asked, let's have one page that answers that question. Let's not try and have an entire, dictionary of information, just put onto one page and say, hey, good luck, go find the answer that maybe you came here for. Yeah.
And I think even the dictionary breaks things up into alphabetical, references and things like that, right? Like, so it just shows, like, break things up to, so it makes sense for a buyer. And this sort of leans into what we did last week, Andrew, where we went through the Clean Living website, where you go to the services page, and she had all of her services all in one with no real description, just like, hey, this is the service, buy now type thing that goes with it. and I know we're over the hour mark now, Griffin, and I appreciate your staying with us for this amount of time. But those are really good sort of thing. Quick wins, I think, that people can have when you look at those best practices is like, hey, just break your services out. And I'm sure like any Squarespace, Wix, whatever, it's pretty easy to add sub pages to a services page. So definitely do that. Have some FAQs that answer that specific questions that people might have about that service specifically as it comes through. But let's look at some of the other areas here. On the other side of it is the bad SEO, right? And Google is pretty renowned for being harsh in its punishments for anyone who tries to circumvent the rules, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, why is there bad SEO? What is Abe talking about here? So, Google is, they have their algorithms that try to detect and measure, okay, well, what is a good result? What should we show here? And particularly in the early days of Google, there was a lot of ways you could, trick those algorithms. You didn't actually have to be a good result. You could just have the right combination of signals that, would trick Google into thinking that you were a good result. And yeah, that's often in our space called like black hat SEO. You're not actually creating real value or anything real long term. You're just more thinking about short term gain, right? You're just, all right, how can I game the system? How can I just achieve a top result without maybe having to put in the full legwork or anything behind that. So a lot of that still exists today. Some of those tactics and those kind of spam, you might call it, like Google's gotten better at detecting it and making those tactics less effective, but people still sell it though, because you as maybe a small business owner or somebody that you don't come from a marketing background, you don't quite know. So you got to kind of watch out because, there's a lot of vendors out there that sell SEO, but what they're really selling you is just, these ineffective tactics that aren't creating value. And, frankly, as time goes on, are less and less effective. So, avoiding that.
Google's also been known to like delist sites from its search engine for, some pretty, I don't know, is it just repeat offenders for black hat SEO tactics where they'll just delist your site and then it's gone, right? So if you're making money and you get a lot of, business come in from your website and start using these black hat tactics, you're running a risk that you could lose all the revenue that you gain from your website simply because of this.
Yeah, and that's timely too, because Google's doing a new kind of a fresh initiative looking for sites. They're calling it like their site reputation like abuse initiative. But yeah, they're always trying to identify those sites that are basically trying to game the system, and then if they detect it, you run the risk of being penalized and being penalized in a pretty severe way. I mean, the most severe would be basically being booted out of the search results altogether. So, I think, maybe some of the people listening, hearing these recommendations, these tactics to go pursue, and they're going, well, I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the knowledge to do this. I'm going to have to hire somebody else to do, some of this stuff. There's risk there. You got to, equip yourself to make a good, decision in that regard, because, last thing you would want to do is hire somebody that you go, okay, yeah, you promised me the world. This all sounds good. Yeah, come on in and do what you got to do. Here's the keys to my website. Unbeknownst to you, the tactics that they're pursuing are ones that are out of Google's favor and expose your business to risk. So that's the thing you got to avoid.
Yeah, and I think people like this, they exist all over the world. And what I'd probably say is, don't get yourself caught up in a Nigerian prince situation where they send you a text message saying like, "Oh, I've got millions of dollars locked up. I just need $1,000 to get it all out," and you go, "Oh, okay, sweet, no worries at all."
Yeah.
Like that's essentially the situation you get yourself into. That most people would be aware of, right? The scammers that are out there. I mean, they're everywhere, even in the SEO space.
Oh, yeah. Especially because it is so confusing, right? And it's easy to it's easy to make it even more confusing than it needs to be, right? And what we try and do is simplify it, make it so that anybody can understand, the basic concepts, and so that they know what they're getting when they're hiring us or whatever. But I do think like that example, hey, send us $1,000, I'll get you $1 million or whatever. Budget's a big thing to watch out for because, there's a lot of SEO services out there that are priced under $500, attractive price points. They say it's going to get me this and that, and I'll be checking that SEO box and going, "Great, I did it." But it's like anything, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And if you're thinking that a budget that low is going to, uh, you know, uh, get you, a flood of traffic and conversions and all of that, well, you got to, maybe catch yourself. So, we'll get inquiries, because, we have our price floors and we have, businesses that it's like, it's not gonna be a fit for us, but here's maybe what you should go explore. And when we hear somebody like, I've got, $250 a month, anything less than 500, we go, well, first of all, should you be investing in SEO?
And I will caveat this with, anyone who's watching in Australia or in the UK, Griffin is solely talking in USD. So realistically, if you're in Australia and you're using AUD or, probably anywhere else except for a USD currency, probably just double the numbers that Griffin's talking about here is probably a good bet. So $500
I don't know the
or
conversion.
less. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just double it. And like if you got less than 1,000 in Australia, then do it yourself.
Yeah, I'll try and help you out too. So yeah, $500 US, 1,000 Australian,
Dollary dues, we like to call them over here, mate.
There we go. I like it. I think the question you should be asking yourself is, well, at that budget level, could I put that towards another marketing channel that is working for me? I mean, maybe you buy ads somewhere, you do something else, whatever. But I'd rather fully fund one channel than underfund two channels. So, if you're at that level, maybe wait on SEO. Maybe hold off until you can more adequately fund it. But if you are, sort of intent to, I got to do something, okay, because I've done nothing in SEO and I'm being told that, I'm really shooting myself in the foot here. I would stick to strictly project work. So don't get roped into a contract where you're paying that much per month. Instead, I would hire vendors that are giving you project-based quotes and clearly defining, hey, what we'll do for you is we'll set up your Google My Business profile. We'll get Google Search Console verified and your XML sitemap submitted. We'll take a sweep through your website, and it's going to take us a month to do that. So those tightly defined scopes, so that I think the biggest risk here is that you get a year down the line that 500 US, that 1,000 Australian is now you've spent 12x that over the course of a year, and you're going, I got nothing. That would be the worst case scenario. So I would stick to project-based work at that budget level. But if you got a little more, so maybe the next tier up, you've got between 500 and 1,500 US dollars a month to put towards an SEO investment. What I encourage people there is I go, find yourself a really skilled freelancer or independent consultant. Don't go to the agency quite yet, because the main advantage of an agency is that they give you multiple people with multiple specializations, and so you get a team, right, for less than often what it would cost to hire a full-time employee. So that's part of the attractiveness of it. But if your budget is in that range, US 500 to 1500, most agencies are not going to be able to staff more than maybe one person on the account anyway. So the principal value of maybe hiring an agency, well, you're just not at a budget level where you're going to even get that. So that's why I say find yourself a freelancer, find yourself an independent consultant, because you're going to get one person at an agency anyway at that budget level. You might as well work with somebody who's you're going to get better bang for your buck. And what's nice too is a lot of I did this when I was, early in my career. I worked at an agency, but I also moonlighted and I freelanced on the side. I think that makes a great fit, for a lot of small businesses where it's like, well, I can't hire the agency, but I can hire the person at the agency on the side, and they're giving me 4 hours a week of their time. That's I think ideal scenario. There's also plenty of really skilled, really great independent consultants out there, and they might be a little bit pricier than that person doing it on the side, but still better than at that budget level than going with the agency.
But it's all about bang for buck, right? And it's like finding where that sweet spot is for your budget. And I guess the next one is, well, when do I hire an agency?
Yeah, I would say that conversation starts around 1,500 months, so 3K Australian. I think that's where you're going to be able to find an agency that'll be staffing multiple people onto the account. So you're getting that advantage of different specializations, and multiple brains. Thinking about your strategy and the tactics being applied. So I like that, and I just think some things to look out for as you're making that decision. One thing I always caution is look out for that, all-in-one agency that, maybe they built your website, so they started you at that and they say, hey, we also do SEO. And you might go, well, that's convenient because you built my website, so you'll do SEO for me too. That's great. But you find out, well, they're really good at building websites and, they're not so great at doing SEO. So
they're not good at building websites for SEO as well.
Yeah,
the other side of that.
That could be that too. So I would, when you're evaluating agencies, I would look, for those that actually have expertise in the thing you're talking about. And if they're niche down to the realm of search, or even better, they do it for specifically businesses in your category, that should give you greater confidence that, okay, that this is going to have greater potential to produce the results I want to see versus, well, I'm just expanding my engagement with an agency that does other things for me. I'm not quite sure if SEO is really a core competence of theirs. So that's one thing to look out for. And another thing too, it's like, well, most business owners, most people are not going to be equipped to really get into the weeds and understand all the nuances of SEO and really evaluate from a technical standpoint. Do these people have the chops? So I wouldn't try to do that at all. What I would do is I would look for, is this agency asking really good questions to really understand my business? Are they, we're meeting, we're getting introduced, they're learning if we're a good fit. Are they genuinely trying to learn about what we do? Or does this feel like a cookie cutter situation where they're just going to plug me into their model and I'm paying, $1,500 a month, whatever that is. It's supposed to generate results. Well, that's probably not going to work. So, while you might not be equipped to really understand from a technical standpoint, do they know what they're talking about? You should feel that, okay, this is a group that is actually trying to understand what we're about, what we do as a business, and devise a strategy tailored to us in the SEO space.
Yeah, and I think that if you're running an e-commerce store, then finding someone who's well versed in e-commerce, or if you're a local brick and mortar business, finding someone who's well versed in that becomes important as well when you start to look at, well, what does their portfolio contain? If you're a software company and all they've done is brick and mortar local businesses, it's probably not the best fit for you. Do you have any advice on that, Griffin?
Yeah, you're asking finding that right agency that has that sort of category experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing because there's a lot of, frankly, we don't work with a lot of, local service-based businesses. So I'm not even most equipped. I'll be the first to say, if you're that restaurant owner or you own that like home services company, we're not going to be generally, the most knowledgeable in that space. Instead we have our focus in, other areas. So even within the SEO world, there's a lot of, differences in how it's applied to different categories of businesses. So I think, as you're out there maybe evaluating options, to go with that vendor, that provider that can demonstrate that they've got that category experience, they've got case studies to back it up. And you should be asking that question. Hey, we're in this industry. What's your experience working with businesses like ours? And, they don't come back with much. That should be a good signal to be like, all right, we've got to keep looking,
Yeah, maybe it's time to move on. No, that's good. And I think that for me, that really provides a good outline of people about what stage is my business at, where I should be looking and what I should be doing, which probably for most people is probably the main question is like, okay, I've got like this base understanding that SEO is something I should care about. What next for me? And it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't have the budget. I just need to do some research and figure this out myself. Or, oh, sweet, I've got the budget to hire someone. I'm going to go and find someone to hire, right? And now they've got some tools there in their tool belt to go forward with. I know we're going to talk about AI and some of the impact it's having on search, but given we're at the hour 20 mark, I want to be respectful of our listeners' attention spans, and also I want to make sure that we have time for the questions that got submitted. And I think the first and most important question is from Bianca, where she asked, "What's with the pink chair?" I can only assume that she's talking about Andrew here. Andrew, have you got an answer for Bianca on that one, mate?
Yeah, look, I've had a few comments about the chair with some of the clips that we've put on socials. Look, at the end of the day, it's all about comfort. I have a terrible back. I've got multiple bulges in my lower back. I've got a tear in one of my discs from my lovely years of service in the military. But to my right, I actually have my chair, which is a terrible black leather chair. And recently my wife bought this chair for herself. But as soon as I sat in it, I quickly claimed it. So ignoring the color of it, it is extremely good for my posture and it is very comfortable. So that's why it is here to stay. So get used to it. Thank you.
For all the haters out there. There you go. All right. So the next one is from Shreya, who's CEO over at UXPin. And she asked the question of, how do I get more organic leads? And so we got this one a couple of weeks ago, actually, and we thought we'll hold this one till we get Griffin on and let you take the reins for this one.
Yeah, that's what we're all after, right? And UXPin, familiar with the product. Great question and highly relevant to what they're trying to do. I think the first piece of advice is we always encourage clients to think bottom up in terms of their SEO strategies. So a lot of people might gravitate towards the big traffic opportunities or what's being searched most. What's going to get me the most volume, the most traffic, but that's often the stuff that's further from the point of conversion. So instead, kind of anchoring the strategy around, well, what are those questions being asked, those things that need to be answered at the point of decision, and do we have content there? So when people are maybe researching pricing, when they're researching you versus the other competitors in the space, are you first satisfying those opportunities to reach people at the very bottom of the funnel, and then kind of go up from there, right? So that'd be the first thing is, if we're talking about leads, well, start at the point of conversion and work your way up. That's going to be the best thing. And then as you're thinking about, okay, well, what content needs to be represented on my site? Are you thinking, keyword first? Are you, looking at your competitors? What are they ranking for? We got to be ranking for those same keywords, and letting that sort of drive your content strategy. That's one way to do it. But I think in this world where there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of, folks in the space, it's becoming far more effective to start from a more customer-centric standpoint. So, what do we know about our audience? What are they asking? What are their pain points? What are their needs? What are their questions that they're asking throughout this process? Okay, we've got that cataloged. Now what keyword opportunities does that represent? So it's keywords coming later in the process, and so that your content and what you're going after is more informed by your audience first, which is ultimately going to lead to better content, content that matches your business, your brand, your product, which is going to support conversions, right? I've heard a great phrase recently. This guy Will Reynolds in our space is sort of lamenting the sea of sameness in content, and a lot of that keyword first mentality encourages that sea of sameness, where it's like, well, this is tangentially related to my business. It has some relevance, and so I'm going to create content around it and try to rank number one for it. And what you end up creating is somewhat generic because maybe it's not something you really have
30 pages that all say the same thing.
Yeah, and you got nothing special to say about it. So, taking the opposite approach and starting, that journey to identifying those keywords from the point of, well, what matters most to our audience and what are we most equipped to talk about? So that'd be one thing. The other two, and this is getting harder and harder to do, it's just, thinking holistically though about, well, it's probably exceedingly rare in these days where somebody is going to go, hey, I need to buy something. I'm going to search on Google and I'm going to purchase. That's it. I think people are more savvy today. They're not just using SEO or not just using search engines to inform that decision. They might be also checking out, these companies' reputation on social media. They might be signing up for the newsletter and seeing what content comes through there for a few months. They might be engaging with paid media. They might be asking their friends, their colleagues, hey, I got to make this buying decision. What do you recommend? And it's going to be more the culmination of all those, things that they come across that's going to ultimately inform the buying decision. So, in that whole process, yeah, maybe they Googled a few times and you came up. And that helped to reinforce the recommendation they got from a colleague. That helped to, put more credibility behind, what they were getting from your email newsletter and things like that. So, in our world, that's the challenge of attribution. When they eventually filled out the contact form or picked up the phone, it came through paid or it came through email, it came through something else, but how did organic search maybe play into that journey? So that's complex, that's convoluted, but there's a lot of opportunity for organic traffic, the traffic you're getting from search engines, to give you advantages in paid media, to give you advantages in your owned marketing channels like email, and look at it more holistically and say, well, maybe organic's not always getting that credit as the last channel that they come through that ultimately drives the conversion, but is it influencing that conversion path elsewhere, and are we taking advantage of that? So
so it's like that eight touch point sort of lead in that people need before they make that buying decision. So they might see you on the search, they might see you on Instagram posting a reel, or some advertising on Instagram, or some advertising on LinkedIn that goes with it, and then a Google ad, and then a display ad, and then eventually they visit your website directly, and you go, oh, this person just came direct to the website and brought. It's like, well, no, they didn't. There was a long journey that went with it. And I think probably for Shreya there, probably the big thing is thinking bottom up. And they've recently had some, product launches, some redefining their product. And I think it's starting at that lower level of what people are going to be looking for. But I think some of the stuff that we talked about today is that when your product changes or your ICP changes significantly, you need to go back and revisit your website and start to understand, okay, well, does this make sense anymore? if I was coming in to buy as this particular ICP, ideal customer profile, or this particular for this particular product, does this make sense still, or is this now confusing and no longer relevant? And so I think that, that bottom up piece is the key there, at least to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably a whole nother episode around the customer journey and how you should be thinking about that. So we'll stay out of the weeds there, but
that's probably be like scratch the surface, right? And then it's and then we better go into that.
Yeah, just one piece of the puzzle,
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess let's close it off there. And Griffin, where can people find you if they want to, follow any insights that you might have, or potentially hit you up for some business? Where do they go?
Yeah, I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, so connect with me there. Happy to start a conversation there. You can check out our website, uproar.com, and also reach out to us there if you're interested. So, LinkedIn being the best bet.
You have a newsletter though, Searchlight, yeah?
I do have a newsletter. Yeah. Get on the newsletter. I hope you find it interesting. We've got monthly. Monthly. SEO and paid search information, and thanks for the plug there.
Yeah. So, and that's, I think that's the biggest thing is, if you are in that stage where you're not really sure about SEO and you're trying to do some things yourself, just find resources like, the Uproar newsletter, Searchlight, to help you build that understanding and that knowledge. And there's also, what I might do is, this is a plug for Search Engine Journal. Griffin, I think you pointed me to this early on in the days. Search Engine Journal have like a SEO 101. So what we'll do is we'll link it in the episode as well. So that way people can go through and have a look at that. And we'll put some links in for Griffin's LinkedIn, the Uproar website, and also where you can subscribe to the newsletter to get some updates monthly from the Uproar team.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right, but as always, you can find us at our socials. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's all at Beers and Business Pod. So get on there. We're pretty active on LinkedIn. We'll get there on TikTok. We're just too old, but mainly Instagram. Too old for TikTok, and it's probably going to get banned in the US soon anyway. But submit questions, topics, guests that you want to see into the future, and we get released weekly on YouTube and Spotify. So make sure you tune in for the next episode.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
No, awesome. Thanks for coming on, Griffin. We appreciate your time, and I know that everyone's going to find value out of the conversation around SEO, because a lot of people just don't understand it.
Yeah, let's hope. So, hopefully we got some value in there, and
definitely
connect with me if there's any other, questions if you want to go deeper. So, thanks, guys.
Awesome. All right. Awesome. I'm out of beer, so I can't really cheers anyone now.
Thank you.
You can tell it was a long one. It was a good one. All right.
Cheers, guys. See you on the next one.